Welcome everybody. Today I'm going to review the Money in the Bank pay-per-view that happened last night. Obviously they had the huge match in WWE headquarters for both the men's and women's Money in the Bank matches, and also a few other matches. Being from the UK, I've had to watch it this morning, which is why this video is a bit delayed. But let's get straight into it. I'm not going to cover off the pre-show. I didn't manage to watch that, but I know Jeff Hardy won his match, and I'm not sure if there was another match that went on there. But let's start with the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match. Now, the Fatal 4-Way Tag match was between The New Day, Miz and John Morrison, the Forgotten Sons and Lucha House Party, and it was a really good matchup actually. It's the first time I've really watched the Forgotten Sons and Lucha House Party for a while at least in the ring, and yeah, good matchup, action-packed, lots of spots as you can imagine with the types of wrestlers that they are, and a few obvious botches there which I was surprised about, considering I'm not sure if doing live shows at the moment given the situation. A lot of talent in the match, and it worked really well. I always find with Fatal 4-Way Tag Team matches, or Fatal 4-Way matches anyway, it's quite difficult to sort of mix and match. Usually, you know, two teams are down and it becomes two teams in the ring and different things like that. But they worked it really well with constant tagging and constant big moves. And yeah, really, really interesting match. A member of the Forgotten Sons got ejected from the ringside. It started a huge kerfuffle, and before you knew it, New Day took advantage, took out the Lucha House Party by hitting a Trouble in Paradise on one of them, and then the big ending, 1, 2, 3, New Day retain. Next up was the matchup between R-Truth and MVP. Not really any build for this, it just got thrown in last minute. I saw the tweet about it and just thought, okay, why? This later became Bobby Lashley versus R-Truth. Funny bit to start off the segment, MVP and R-Truth came out. R-Truth started teaching MVP about bawling, which of course is MVP's thing. He went back and forth on that, and just as the match was about to begin, Bobby Lashley's music hits, and out comes Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley comes and says to MVP, I got this, take the night off. R-Truth then goes, I'll take the night off too. Why does he get to take the night off? And they had this bit of a joke, you know how R-Truth is. It was quite interesting, and it made it a bit quite funny. And then R-Truth proceeded to get squashed by Lashley, who's got this new aggressive attitude, which I prefer so much more to what was going on with that romance storyline with Lana. Lana wasn't ringside again. It seems that maybe they're killing that storyline. Obviously, Rusev has been released by WWE. I wonder if that's impacted it. Really interesting. And although the commentator said it was a big statement, as interesting and good seeing an aggressive Lashley was, a big statement by defeating R-Truth isn't really the case. He needs to start building up against some top performers rather than jobbers right now. Bayley versus Tamina was the next match. Pre-match interview, Bayley answered for Sacha, showing that there might be a possible rift between the two. There was a little tension again between Sacha and Bayley before Bayley then eventually started working on Tamina's leg, which is a typical heel move, or well, move in general when you find a big opponent. Tamina then got some offense in, going for the super kick. Bayley counters and hit a submission on her leg. I thought it was interesting to hear Corey Graves sort of critique quite a few moves that Bayley was doing, and sort of saying she should be doing this, should be doing that. I've not really heard him say that about other wrestlers. I just found that interesting, but he did proceed to sort of big her up. Considering she's a heel and he's a heel commentator, I thought that he'd be supporting her a lot more. Bayley then throws water over Tamina, and Tamina gets pissed, hits a super kick, throws Bayley over the announce table, where Corey says, why don't you catch a Cole? Good quip. He's usually really quite good at that. Tamina then hits a super kick and Samoa drop. Sacha distracts Tamina. Bayley rolls up Tamina, 1, 2, 3, pin. Sacha once again saves Bayley. This is definitely building up to some turn from Sacha for a big match. Maybe it's SummerSlam, or maybe they'll keep it going until something like the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, who knows. The next match is for the Universal Championship, Strowman versus Bray Wyatt. They went with Bray, I think, instead of having The Fiend, obviously, because of the relationship Strowman and Bray have used to build up this feud. And it made a lot of sense, and especially with the ending, which I'll get to in a minute, which really makes a lot of sense. Bray comes out, and he's a completely different persona to the old Bray, and The Fiend, we've seen it before, and says to the commentary team, you do a good job no matter what anybody tells you. I just thought that was a funny thing to add in there. A slow start, like you'd imagine, with two big guys in a match. Strowman starting to dominate Bray. Braun then goes to do those running shoulder barges around the ring, countered by Bray over the announce table, and then of course Bray started to switch into another gear. Percy the Pig shows up and starts chanting on Bray, and numerous puppets continue to show up around the ring. Bray hits a tornado DDT and then Sister Abigail for a 2 count on Braun. And Wyatt seems to talk to himself and like he's fighting something, fighting the Fiend, I'm guessing. The voice is in his head and screams at Braun as if to say, look what you're making me do to you, which is really interesting. He plays the character so well. He's one of my favourite characters in WWE right now. Bray then hesitates in hitting another Sister Abigail and gets chokeslammed by Braun. Braun then starts to dominate and but Bray then starts to get a bit more offense back. Kicks out Strowman to ringside and Braun then reappears with the black sheep mask on. At this point I wondered, is he worked? Is he turning back? But I did also question maybe he's playing mind games with Wyatt, which we don't see many wrestlers do actually at the moment. And it turns out whilst they're hugging and they're doing that sort of stance with the arms out in the air and they think they've all done it, the puppets around the ring are starting to say, Bray, you did it, you brought Braun home. But then Braun slaps Bray away, hits him when he's running, power slam, gets the 1, 2, 3, and that's it. Screams at Bray at the end saying that he did this. Bray didn't make Braun Strowman who he was. Braun did it all on his own, sort of thing. And then it's kind of creepy. Bray sat there in the corner, just staring at him. It starts to show the Fiend and close it off. But it's just showing that's building for another match now. Bray tried doing it his way, and now the Fiend's going to face Braun and I think probably take the title from him. Interesting thing with that is that Braun outsmarted Bray with his own mind games. It was something, like I say, I've not seen done before, and it's really good. But the Fiend's going to come back stronger, and I'll be shocked if he doesn't beat Braun at the next pay-per-view. Next matchup now, just skipping right to near the end. It was a really good matchup, but McIntyre versus Seth Rollins. Rollins hits a super kick on McIntyre, but McIntyre kicks out at 1. Rollins then hits this frog splash. McIntyre again kicks out at 1. Rollins starts to get really pissed off. He picks up a chair, then decides against using the chair. McIntyre counters the stomp, hits him with a headbutt. Rollins then counters McIntyre and suplexes him in the Falcon Arrow, and then a 2 count is finally had by Rollins on McIntyre. Rollins then goes for the stomp, countered by Drew in a really good counter into the Future Shot DDT, a kick out by 2 by Rollins. Now Rollins had been working McIntyre's leg throughout the match to sort of stop him from using the Claymore, and McIntyre's leg gets all tied up in the corner, but astonishingly, and I thought it was really impressive, McIntyre lifts himself up in the corner with Rollins above him, throws him over with a huge suplex almost across the entire ring, almost out of the ring, and then McIntyre goes for the Claymore kick, but the stomp is hit by Rollins, but McIntyre manages to kick out too. A good sequence finishes off the match now. The stomp is countered, Glasgow Kiss is delivered to Seth Rollins, then the super kick from Rollins knocks McIntyre onto the ropes. Of course, then in comes the Claymore kick, takes Rollins' head off. McIntyre retains 1, 2, 3. Really interesting at the end though. McIntyre, they're trying to show him as being this great champion, and he is. I think he could be really great. He comes into the ring and asks Rollins to shake his hand. Rollins, surprisingly, being the heel and obviously everything is going through, shakes his hand. McIntyre leaves and lifts up the championship high up in the air, and that's that. Okay, so final match now. Really, really interesting. Obviously, it was always going to be interesting. It's the Money in the Bank matches in WWE headquarters. The way they introduced the superstars was interesting. They sort of brought them in, into the women into the lobby and then the men into the gym. Everyone's wondering where Asuka is, and Asuka hits a huge crossbody onto all the women, knocking them down. Asuka then gets into the elevator and goes straight up, and that then when they cut to the men are making jokes to each other, and then next thing you know, a huge brawl kicks off in the gym. Lots of things happening. I thought it was really interesting where Corbin picks up a weight and he smashes the mirror, and he just stares at the mirror for quite a bit, and then the brawl continues. But I didn't know if that was sort of foreshadowing something that might happen in his career. Obviously, breaking a mirror is supposedly bad luck, so I just didn't know if that was sort of indicating that. There had been rumours someone would get thrown off the top of the roof, so I wonder if that was linked to that, but we'll get to that in a minute. Otis traps AJ under some heavy weights, so AJ's out of the picture for now, and then Otis, Corbin and Bryan and Black all brawl in the elevator, and Ray takes the stairs. The women and the men sort of come face to face now, or get in the way of each other as they fight on the stairs, and then there's some weird setup in one of the lobbies with some ropes, and so I thought this part was really quite funny actually. Corbin gets tied up in these ropes, Bryan's hitting his yes kicks, and then Otis is there chanting yes every kick. Bryan looks at him, starts hitting yes kicks on Otis as well, and takes him out of the picture. Meanwhile, Black has escaped, and Shayna and Asuka had also escaped for the women to start looking to the roof. There are a few cameos in there from people. For example, Dana thinks she's won and got the briefcase, but there in comes Stephanie McMahon telling her, "What are you doing? You're making a mess. That's not the right briefcase. The right briefcase is on the roof." And then Mella has her poster of when she's lifting the Money in the Bank briefcase and puts it through Donna, which comes back a bit later, and then Nasty knocks out Mella. AJ, meanwhile, starts looking for Ray because Ray didn't help him when he had those weights stuck on him, and he sees the poster of The Undertaker. He starts to panic, and then he goes to the door, opens the door, and it's dark, and it's got the bells ringing, and it's got a coffin and some eerie smoke referencing, and an urn referencing, obviously, his match with Undertaker at WrestleMania. At least the Black then locks him into the room with that, and again, seems to take him out of the picture. Another cameo came from Heyman. Paul Heyman was eating, and then both women and men came face to face. There's this huge table of food, and then Heyman's in the middle saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, sort of calm down." Then Dana comes in though with the poster around her neck, accidentally bangs into Heyman. Heyman throws or drops his sandwich onto Otis. Otis starts doing his thing where he shakes and says, "Food fight," gets a huge plate of rice or something, throws it right into Paul Heyman's face, and before you know it, there's a huge food fight between the men and the women, actually fighting each other. And in that, Shayna starts to make Rey Mysterio tap out, and they also get crushed between Otis and Nia Jax, and there's just so much action, so much going on. I'll get to what I think about this match a bit later on, but I thought it was really good. Nia Jax and Otis go face to face, and then they both decide they don't want anything of each other and move on. Otis finds pies then, and John Laurinaitis has a little cameo in there and goes, "People power," and he gets a pie in the face. Obviously, I've seen rumours saying that Vince is very high on Otis, and that gets him a bit of a pop with some people who remembers how boring and horrible the Raws were under John Laurinaitis. Shayna then gets taken out by getting moves hit on her by 3 other women. AJ shows up again and fights Daniel Bryan, and they end up fighting in Vince's office. He tells them to get out. AJ, before he leaves, saying we should sort out the chairs, and they tidy up the office for him and apologise to Vince. Quite a funny sort of moment, or trying to bring some comedy into the match. And then outside, say, AJ goes to Bryan, "You're a real coward right there," and he said, "You were the one that told us to sort out the chairs," and they had some good banter there, and then eventually started brawling again. Corbin then takes out AJ and heads to the roof. Asuka and Nia and Lacey are the ones, women that make it to the roof. And they fight over the briefcase, and for some reason, as Asuka's up top, Corbin then tries to, I don't know if he's trying to stop Asuka winning, or whether he's trying to also get the men's briefcase, but Asuka kicks him off the ladder, which I thought was a big statement, and she picks up the briefcase, and Asuka wins the women's Money in the Bank. Really happy for Asuka that she won. She's been destined to be a champ, and I really hope she is soon. Otis then tries to climb the ladders for the men, and the women are now left, and it's all about the men's match, obviously, and the steps start to break like they did on Smackdown, and then Corbin and Otis brawl. Aleister Black comes in and hits the Black Mass on Otis, a senton on Otis by Rey Mysterio as well, and Rey and Black fight over the ladder. AJ pushes them both off the ladder, and they both go ringside where Corbin is as well. Baron Corbin then throws off both Ray and Black off the roof. Now, they didn't dwell on that too much, but yeah, they were definitely indicating, they're off the roof. But they didn't show bodies or anything. It was just off they go, and they're out of the picture. At this point, of course, I'm thinking, well, Corbin's going to win. And AJ and Corbin fight over the briefcase. They both unhook the briefcase. They both got the briefcase in their hand. And then Elias comes out of nowhere with his guitar and hits Corbin off the ladder. He drops the briefcase, but in that dropping of the briefcase, AJ has it in his hand. It's bouncing between his hand. It slips out of his hand, and there's Otis to catch the briefcase. And Otis is Mr. Money in the Bank, which I think is an absolutely really surprising move. I had seen things saying Vince is very high on him, but very interested to see where he's going. The storyline with Mandy has been really great, but to be given the opportunity to maybe be a WWE champion, that's a big step for Otis. Yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. I really enjoyed that. So ultimately, really good pay-per-view. I think people, there's some negative comments on the social medias like there always are. You're never going to please everybody. But ultimately, if you think about the situation that they're in, there's no fans. The pandemic's going on. They're trying to make you escape from all this in the world. They don't reference the pandemic or anything in many of the shows. you know, just think about what they've accomplished. I think that was a great match, and to bring in the headquarters and everything, I thought they did great things, the best things they could do in that situation. And the Money in the Bank match was brilliant, involving both the men and the women like that, and doing it the way they did was really good, really creative, and there was some comedic moments. It was that sort of cinematic match that they tried to do with the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse match, and they said there's more of that to come given the current situation. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the show. I thought the way they're building up the Braun and Bray storyline too is just that. It's a story. People can critique all they want, but the fact is, it's a really interesting story. They're actually building something, and they lack that a lot at the moment. So I'm really looking forward to what happens when The Fiend comes back for Braun. And yeah, just a really, really good show, given the situation. So let me know your thoughts. I really enjoyed it. Did you? Be sure to like, share, and comment, and obviously subscribe to WWF AA Era, and I'll be back with more content soon.